of stewardship and respect. We honor and pay respect to the ancestors, both past and present, of these Indigenous communities, and we recognize their enduring connection to this land. We commit ourselves to honoring their heritage, learning Indigenous histories, and working toward justice and respect for Indigenous rights. I've actually come across a couple of these things, so I know they happen. This one that I just read to you was created for me by ChatGPT, because I asked, well, what would a land acknowledgement for Nampa, Idaho look like? And some of the sources it gave me is like Bureau of Land Management and the Idaho State Historical Society as sources of where it helped create some of this information for me. But, I've actually been in the meeting where it started that way. I've seen a couple podcasts where they have highlighted these things happening at corporate events or large gatherings, where at the beginning of the meeting, they acknowledge where this place originally came from and then. Today's lesson is doing another kind of a land acknowledgement. In this week's lesson, we are looking at God's connection to the land and what land means in the Bible. And so it gave us basically three different scenarios of land given. And let's go ahead and start with the first one in Genesis 1:28 through 31. So if we can go there, let's take a look at the first land acknowledgement, if you will. Genesis 1, verses 28 through 31.
Through 31. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. And God said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree, in the which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat, and to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that creepeth upon the earth, wherein there is life. I have given every green herb for meat, and it was so. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning were the sixth day.
Okay, so we have at the very beginning that God has granted rights to the land. To whom did he grant this?
To Adam and Eve and his descendants, their rights.
To Adam and Eve and their descendants. He asked them to be fruitful, multiply, to fill the land, to take care of the land, that this land will be theirs. This whole planet will be theirs. Was there any conditions to that contract? Let's go ahead and take a look at the next chapter, Genesis 2, verses 15 through 7.
To be fruitful and multiply, that's,
Well, be fruitful, multiply,
yeah,
and to take care of it, right?
yeah.
The tree they weren't supposed to eat from,
Right.
that specific tree.
We go to Genesis 2, 15 through, what did I say, 15 through 17. And we get a little bit more of some of the conditions that God has given them them to the land. And what does that say?
Then Yahweh God took man and put him in the Garden of Eden to cultivate it and tend it. Yahweh God commanded the man, saying, from any tree in the garden you may freely eat, but from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat, for on the day that you eat from it you will certainly die.
So we have the condition of the tree. So in the very beginning, this whole earth was given to man to rule. And he had one major condition. He had to leave one piece of it alone.
I think also of Psalms 8. What is man that thou art mindful of him? What is the Son of Man that thou visitest him? Thou madest him a little lower than the angels, thou crownest him with glory and honor, and didst set him over all the works of thy hand. And man's dominion was the entire earth. And I love the land acknowledgement. It's not all wrong. And to acknowledge the people that have gone before on this place that we call Earth, because we are connected to the earth. We are earth beings. We are made from the dust of the earth. And God didn't just give us dominion over the earth. We are part of it. It's like a husband caring for his family. We're to care for the earth because the earth we are part of it. It is part of us.
And really, what greater example of that is the ability to name things. So God let Adam name the animals. When we name something, we gain some possession over it, don't we? When we adopted our children, they both came with different names. My daughter's name that she was being called when we adopted her at 2 months was Miranda. We changed it to Abney. Our son, the original name on our son's birth certificate was Orlando. We changed it to Ivan. There is possession naming, isn't there?
Yeah.
And so they became ours when we named them. And their names, their birth certificates were changed to reflect their new name. And that's when they became fully ours. Is when their names, that's part of the adoption process. And that was the final sign of the completion of our adoption. It was receiving those birth certificates. That happens after the court date when you finally receive those rights. Then those birth certificates are ordered and you wait in the mail for 3 to 4 weeks until those arrive in the mail. And then you have a brand new birth certificate with the name that you gave on the birth certificate. And so the land was originally given to Adam and Eve. They had the right of naming what was on the land. They had the care of the land. But God still had a requirement for that. And that was leave this one place alone. As far as we know, there's not a whole lot of other requirements that he gave them, other than, as you point out, being fruitful, multiply, care for the earth, don't eat of this tree. But as we all know the story, Adam and Eve ate of the tree. And then they lost the right to the land, because the very next thing we see is in Genesis 3:17 through 24. What happens as a result of breaking the conditions of the land, of the promise?
Well, the land started having weeds grow in it. Our roses are thorn bushes now. And he had to till the land,
Yes,
you know.
he had to work for what he got.
Yes.
It wasn't just, there became an enmity between the man and the land in there.
Yeah.
It became a battle. Believe me, I'm fighting that battle all the time with my acre of land. Them weeds. It's like, Lord, I think I want a smaller piece of land. I can't keep up with this one. But if you look at 17 through 24, he said to Adam, because you have heeded the voice of your wife and have eaten from the tree of which I commanded, you shall not eat of it. Cursed is the ground for your sake, and toil you shall eat of it all the days of your life. Both thorns and thistles it shall bring forth for you, and you shall eat the herb of the field. In the sweat of your face you shall eat bread till you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken, and for dust you are, and to dust you will return.
The SDA Bible says you shall eat casserole all the days of your life.
A casserole,
Casserole.
okay. Or haystacks.
Haystack.
And Adam called his wife's name Eve because she was the mother of all living. And Adam, also for Adam and his wife, the Lord made tunics of skin and clothed them. And then the Lord said, behold, the man has become like one of us to know good and evil. And now lest he put out his hand also and take of the tree of life and eat and live forever. Therefore the Lord sent him out of the Garden of Eden to till the ground from which he was taken. So he drove out the man, and he placed cherubim to the east of the Garden of Eden, and a flaming sword which turned every way to guard the way to the tree of life. So he not only gained toil for the land, he had became in competition or fighting the land, but the garden to which he had been given was now denied him. He was spewed out of it, if you will, right?
So God named Adam, and Adam named Eve.
He did, because she was the mother of all living things.
He came up with that name.
Well, Adam literally means earth. So he named him
Earth.
Adam, where he came from the Adamah. When you look at the Hebrew language, you realize that the earth is very tied into what we are. Which is interesting. It's different than the angels. We're different beings than the angels. Unto man was given dominion of the earth, because he is of it. Yeah. And we often make, and I don't want to steal your thunder because you're probably going to go there, but the plan of salvation is not complete when we get to heaven. It's complete when the earth is made new.
Right here on earth.
Yeah. Our home is the earth.
Yeah.
Our home is not heaven. Our home is the earth.
Yeah, we take contention with one very popular hymn. This earth is not my home,
This
I'm
world
just
is
a
not-
passer through.
This world as it is, I can
Yes.
take it. This world as it is not mine.
But the earth as God intended it to be, and as it will eventually be, then the story of salvation is not complete until we have returned back to the new earth. Even when the second coming of God, and when we go up to heaven, this story isn't complete yet.
Yeah, and I'm reminded of Isaiah. In Isaiah, what is the picture of heaven? You shall not plant and another eat. You shall plant and you shall eat. The picture of heaven is that the earth will yield its produce, and you will not have the results of your labor taken away from you.
It is up to you to decide. We sometimes look in, just to get us a tad bit political here. We sometimes look at the purpose of governments is to we talk about wealth redistribution, where we make the rich pay more so that we can help support the poor. But that's not the economy of heaven. The economy of heaven is that each of us will have the fruit of our own labor, that nothing will be taken from us to be given to another, but that what we produce, what we create is for us to decide what to do with, for us to do with as we will. And that is the economy of heaven.
It's
Which is-
interesting, because a lot of people think it's gonna be like a socialist.
You're
you
right.
know. I've heard that many times, oh, it's gonna be socialism, and it's gonna work because it's heaven,
Right.
Well, socialism was the economy of the early church because we have poor, we have people who cannot fend for themselves. And but in heaven, everybody will be able-bodied.
Yeah.
Everybody will have mental faculties, and God is the ultimate provider. And the land will produce its yield. Nobody will go hungry.
Yeah.
And so that's not the issue. In fact, I can imagine, come visit me at my house and let me share the bounty that God has given me. And we'll certainly be sharing. Lots, the economy of heaven is not self-centered. Yeah.
Well, we were having a discussion with my parents last night, because we were all on about the idea of perfection. And sometimes it's like, oh, when I get to heaven, I'll be able to play like a maestro piano, right? I'll be able to do these things that I can't do here on this earth. But is that what perfection really means? Is that I will be able to be a master at every gift, of every talent? Or is it that I will become a master of the talent that God has given me? And be able to share the fruit of that with those around me.
If
So,
everybody's the same, then we have very little to share with each other.
right,
Be very boring.
but I might still be a horrible pianist in heaven. I might not even be the most beautiful person in heaven. Will our beauty all be the same, or will we all be beautiful but still have degrees of beauty? I don't know, maybe and will it matter? And that's really the big thing, is would it even matter?
I can't help but imagine that we'll still have certain parameters and restraints on what we are able to do. I think even God has certain restraints on him of what he chooses and doesn't choose to do. That he chooses he chooses those restraints. Like he holds back his wrath. He
Right.
chooses to restrain himself from carrying out his wrath.
Yeah.
Yes, at sin, because
I may never be the guitarist that I wish I could be. I wanted to be musical, but may not happen.
yeah,
I can just enjoy the
enjoy
music.
it, yeah.
So-
Every musician has to have an audience.
And I think that if you decide that your passion is the guitar or whatever the equivalent in heaven is,
Yeah,
then you will certainly have the ability to exhibit some sort of mastery of it. The skill is 90% passion. What are you passionate about? What do you find enthusiasm in pursuing? Because the passion precedes the effort.
Right.
And the effort, the practice, the rehearsal, the studying, the time put into it is what develops mastery.
How many of us have not known young people who had a lot of talent, a lot of promise,
Yeah.
and never fulfilled their potential? And how many of us have known kids who had a lot of struggles, and nobody would believe that they would be successful, and they end up surpassing everyone's expectation.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Even though they were maybe mediocre.
Yeah.
Sure.
Mediocre, you know. We see this in our lives today. You know, passion has a lot to do with where you end up. Sometimes passion is more important. In fact, many times, passion is more important than talent.
Oh, yeah.
Passion and talent together is phenomenal. But passion itself can overcome lack of talent.
Case in point, in the 1970s, there was a tennis phenom from Russia named Marina Navratilova. And up to that point, there had been no Russian tennis stars, particularly female. After Marina came through, now there are dozens of top-seeded female Russian tennis stars. Why? Because little Russian girls saw Marina Navratilova and said, I want to do that. And it inspired their passion for that particular thing.
And on the earth, maybe there won't be struggling for existence. You'll probably have a little bit. Maybe
Not
more
struggling
free
for
time.
existence, yeah. Struggling for existence probably will be gone. I still think there will be struggle to learn.
Well,
Because-
struggle for survival, I think.
Yeah.
It won't be a thing,
Right,
but you'll probably have maybe a little bit more free time and a little
Yeah.
bit more patience to
Mhm.
put into things that are difficult to
Right.
learn
right,
and, excel at.
What I think is wonderful that we will be learning We will always be learning.
Amen, yeah.
Well, there's a whole universe of things to learn about. I don't think we'll ever be bored or have,
And we will get to see the other people on the other world.
Yeah.
I don't know what they'll look like or anything, but we'll get to see them. Yeah, that's wonderful too.
They're still discovering new animals all the time.
Well,
in
and
the ocean.
I shocked one Sabbath school class I was teaching once by saying when all this is over, God's probably gonna be creating new peoples, new worlds, new universes. Why not? He's a creator God. That's what he enjoys doing.
Did he
Wow.
pause that creation process when? the
I
earth
think
fell?
right now it's paused until the conflict is over, but this is just a short span of eternity.
Yeah.
And then all those people that he creates and creatures that he will create after us, who's going to teach them what sin is?
Hmm.
Because they didn't see it for themselves as the whole universe does right now.
At least that sin will never rise again.
It will never rise again, but because we are going to be the testimony of it. Before, when Lucifer fell, who was to tell Lucifer, oh, let me tell you about what happens if you go down this path? Ellen White describes Michael the archangel contending with Lucifer, trying to bring him back and
Wasn't it
convince
like
him
3
that the path
times?
that he was going was wrong, but he wouldn't listen.
Wasn't it like a total of 3 times?
I know, I don't know.
That Jesus went to him and tried to explain things.
Yeah, it may be, I don't know or if there's any basis on that or not.
And then
But I do believe that he tried, God contends with all of us.
the
And
angels that
yet
followed
he
him.
still chose because there was a place of doubt. Even Ellen White says, like, he took a third of the angels with him, but there was at least a third who stayed behind who were like,
Did I choose right?
did I choose right? Was he right or not? Who had doubt? And it wasn't until the crucifixion that all doubt was finally gone. And he's like, well, even after Adam and Eve and Cain and Abel, you still had doubt until the crucifixion, after all of the horrendous things that happened before that. But there was still a element of doubt for,
Well, for God's character, because it was.
yes.
That's where he proved his
Right.
character was on the cross.
And what we will be doing, I think, through most of eternity is we are that testimony to all God's creation, both old and new, of what we have experienced, what we know. So, but yeah, and then we kind of gotten a little off track here because this is fun to talk about these suppositions. But let's go back when we're talking about the land. Adam lost the land, and so this conflict began. Then we go and we look at what happens with Canaan, and I found it kind of interesting. The land of Canaan was not promised just to Abraham. It was promised repeatedly. And just to take a look at that, because I thought it was kind of interesting, let's go look at Genesis 13, 14 to 15. Genesis 13, 14 and 15.
And the Lord said unto Abram, after that Lot was separated from him, lift up now thine eyes and look from the place where thou art northward and southward and eastward and westward. For all the land which thou seest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed forever.
Okay, so who was the initial promise given to for the land of Canaan?
Lot.
Abraham.
I mean, Abram.
Yeah, Abraham.
Abraham.
Okay, and now let's take a look at Genesis 26, 3. Yeah, we can do 2 and 3.
2 and 3. The Lord had appeared to Isaac and said, do not go down to Egypt. Live in the land where I tell you to live. Stay in this land for a while. And I will be with you and bless you. For you and your descendants I will give all these lands and will confirm the oath I swore to your father Abraham.
Okay, so he gave the promise to Abraham. Who is he giving the promise to here?
Isaac.
Giving the promise to Isaac. All right, so he confirmed it through Isaac as well. Now let's look at Genesis 28 verse 13.
Isaiah,
Genesis 28,
oh,
sorry.
Genesis
That's-
20.
I'm thinking Isaac. Genesis 28, verse 13.
And behold, Yahweh was standing above it and said, I am Yahweh, the God of your father Abraham, the God of Isaac. On the land on which you lie, I will give to you and your descendants.
Okay, so who is he talking to here?
Yaakov, the heel grabber.
Yes, the famous the ladder to heaven,
Mhm.
the stair. So Jacob, he gives this promise as well. So 3 witnesses of that this particular land of Canaan would belong to them. And then, you know, the period of 400 years, they leave the land, they don't come back for like 400 some years, and then they come back, and where we are right now, they are given the land. And we have, you know, the text we have is just a whole bunch of, this is this tribe's land, this is this tribe's land, divvying up the land amongst the various tribes. These belonged to them. This land now belonged to them. But did it belong to them unconditionally? No.
They had conditions, yes.
Right.
They were to obey the covenant with the Lord.
So what did they have to do? Let's take a look at Deuteronomy. And there's a couple things in this text that are interesting to look at. Deuteronomy 9 verses 4 through 6. And he starts off by talking about, the Canaanites. And so let's actually just start with Deuteronomy 9 chapter 9 verse 4.
After the Lord your God has driven them out before you, do not say to yourself, the Lord has brought me here to take possession of the land because of my righteousness. No, it is on the account of the wickedness of these nations that the Lord is going to drive them out before you.
Okay, so what did the Israelites do to earn this land?
Not much.
None.
Nothing. In fact, in Leviticus 18, which is the holiness chapter of Leviticus, where they were given, do not do as the inhabitants of this land has done. Do not do any of these abominations. For the land is spewing them out, and the land will spew you out as well. So the land is personified as expelling the people that live there. And the land will continue to expel them if they continue in the practices of the Canaanites, Hivites, Perizzites.
Right.
Parasites.
So did the Canaanites so much lose the land because it had been promised? Or did they lose the land because of their wickedness?
Disobedience,
It was disobedience.
yeah.
Because if it was just because of the promise, God could have given it to Abraham back in the days of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. He could have given it to them then, but he even told Abraham at the time, the time of the Canaanites has not yet been complete.
Wickedness of the Amorites is
The
not
Amorites. It's not yet been fulfilled. So, in other words, there are still good enough people here to let them continue to live here in peace, right? At least that's how I interpret it. That they had not become so wicked that they could no longer stand the land, or that they
It
deserve
goes
judgment.
to God's character. He was striving with the Canaanites. And the reason he picked Abraham was that the people that had been in that land to this point had not been faithful. There's evidence that there were Yahweh worshipers in Canaan, particularly Melchizedek.
Yeah.
He was a Canaanite prince, Canaanite king. He was king of Jerusalem. King of peace. He was priest to the Almighty, to Yahweh, to God.
Yeah, and I believe that like Sodom and Gomorrah had to be destroyed because they had reached the fullness, and that if they had been allowed to continue where they were in what they were doing, they would have taken the rest of the land with them much sooner. Way too quickly. And so God puts in these stopgap measures, you know,
Yeah. It's the wrath of God is interactive and preserving. The end of sin is to destroy itself. And if God had not enacted the flood, I believe mankind would have annihilated the earth by now.
Mhm. And none would have been left.
No.
None would have been left. So God has created strife, created disasters and stuff like that to preserve. In some ways, when I look at like Abraham's story with him and him rescuing Sodom and Gomorrah from the kings that invaded them. I don't think that Abraham actually did them any favors by doing that. In some ways, he may have sealed their judgment. He gave them another opportunity to turn, but within just 10 years is when God had to destroy the city by a natural disaster of some sort, or unnatural disaster. However you may look at that, when you look at what happened to Sodom and Gomorrah. And so, but the land, the Canaanites are being removed out because of wickedness. And the Israelites are getting the benefit of that, not because of their own righteousness. Now, where have we heard something like that before? Isn't that something that we hear in the plan of salvation as well? Do we deserve what we are receiving from God? Because all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. Can we be good enough for the promise that we have coming? So in many ways, we are like the Israelites, being given a promised land of which we have not earned. But let's go ahead and keep reading. Let's read what were the conditions that God gave to the Israelites to stay in the land. So verses 5-6.
Not for thy righteousness or for the uprightness of thine heart dost thou go to possess their land, but for the wickedness of these nations, the Lord thy God doth drive them out from before thee, and that he may perform the word which the Lord sware unto thy fathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Just keep going.
Yeah, one more verse.
Understand therefore that the Lord thy God giveth thee not this good land to possess it for thy righteousness, for thou art a stiff-necked people.
Okay, so we emphasize this even more. Do they deserve this land?
Far from it.
Far from it. He makes it very clear how little that they deserve it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's look at Deuteronomy 4:1.
Now therefore hearken, O Israel, unto the statutes and unto the judgments, which I teach you, for to do them, that ye may live and go in and possess the land, which the Lord God of your fathers giveth you.
Okay. So what are the conditions for being able to live in the land?
They are to keep his statutes.
Statutes and his judgments, right?
Yes.
And we were reminded of this when we studied the pronouncing of the blessings and the cursings of Gerizim and Ebal. That the law was written in stone on the very land. This is the law of the land. God says this land is mine. Abraham went up and down the land, building what? Building altars of earth. Foreshadowing the idea that this land is God's to give. It belongs to him. This is the land, the law of this land. If you want to stay in this land, this is what you've got to do.
And when they failed to do so over and over again, we know what happened after that. First, the Israelites were taken from the land. And then later, the tribe of Judah and Benjamin were taken from the land, though they were promised that they could return. But it's interesting, one of the interesting stories that happened when the Israelites were taken away was that who was it that took them?
The Assyrians.
The Assyrians, as Amalekites, Amorite, I knew it began with an A. So, but the Assyrians came, when they took the Israelites out of their land, they brought in another people into their land. Do you remember what happened to them?
According to, Chronicles, or 2 Kings 17, I believe it is, they were attacked by lions. There was an infestation of lions, and people wrote back to the king of Assyria and said, please send us the people of this land, because they had the idea that, you worship the God of the land. This was even a pagan custom, pagan idea. And you had to worship the God of the land. We need you to send priests of these people to teach us how to worship the God of this land. And so that's why, for example, you have the
Samaritans.
Samaritans, there we go. The Samaritans worshiping Yahweh. The Samaritans were of mixed faith, mixed religion, mixed background, mixed.
They weren't
They
Israelites by
worshiped
birth.
Yahweh because they had been sent priests that were in the northern kingdom of Israel to teach them the worship of Yahweh.
Because the land itself seemed to be attacking them with those lions. And so I find that kind of interesting, this connection to the land and to faith. They're seeing throughout the Bible in these various different stories, there is this connection that we earn the land, or we are been given the land and are required by doing so. We are to keep the land, we must be follow, right? We must follow the statutes and the precepts and the judgments that have been given for the land. And that if we break that covenant, then the land will spew us out. We will no longer be allowed to keep what had been ours. And so we have this theme going on in here. But let's take a look, because there's another element, and we definitely want to get to that, is we have been promised another land. We talked a little bit about that, and that is the new earth, correct? So let's take a look at that. Let's start with 2 Peter 3:13.
But according to his promise, we are looking for a new heavens and a new earth in which righteousness dwells.
Okay, and then John 14, 1-3.
I can quote it from memory. Let not your hearts be troubled, and believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. Behold, I go to prepare a place for you. If I go, I'm doing it from memory here. So,
And if I go
my memory's failing.
to prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself, that where I am, there you may be also. So we have in the New Testament another land promised to us, a new earth and a new heaven promised to us. Does that new heaven and that new earth come without conditions? It does come with conditions, doesn't it?
Conditions are good,
Yes, they can be very good, right?
very good.
So let's,
I think just to belabor this a little bit, the conditions, to avoid legalism, we have to understand that the law is expressed by Jesus himself. So to fulfill all of this, Thomas said to him, Lord, we know not where you're going. How do we know the way? Jesus said to him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Jesus on the cross wrested control of this earth from Lucifer. And he bought the earth back by his sacrifice. And so, yes, we have the law of the land, but the law of the land is a person. It is Jesus Christ, who is the express image, the express purpose of God.
and in fact, is it in this chapter or the next one? Yeah, I think it's in this one. Or is it 16? The one we were talking about last
And
night.
that was 17.
17?
I pray they all may be one, even as I am in you and you in me.
Right.
Yeah.
Because God wants us. Yes, here, like verse 17, verse 11. Now I am no longer in the world, but these are in the world, and I come to you, Holy Father. Keep through your name those whom you have given me, that they may be one as we are. And while I was with them in the world, I kept them in your name. Those whom you gave me, I have kept, and none of them is lost except the son of perdition, that the scriptures might be fulfilled. But now I come to you that these things I speak to the world, that they may live and have my joy fulfilled in themselves. So when we read that, we talk about being one with Jesus, being one with God. What does that mean? Does that mean that we become God? Or does that mean that we become one in his purpose and his faithfulness and his obedience?
And it's truth.
And his truth.
Last few verses of Matthew 5 and the Sermon on the Mount describes God's love. God sends the rain on the just and the unjust. And then he turns around and says, be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect. Perfect meaning, teleos, complete, to fulfill one's purpose. Purpose of God is to bless his creation. He died, he lives, he created, he gives of himself for the benefit of his creation. And we, if we are like Christ, do the same. We live for the express purpose of blessing those that we come in contact with, whether they bless us or not. So we should, as he said, love those who curse us, do good for those who hate us.
And so if we are to leave with one thing, it is what is our conditions for heavens. There are conditions for the land, but what is our conditions for heaven? But to do the will of God who has given it to us, to fulfill his purpose for us in our lives. And as we do so, we discover that purpose makes us more full and more complete and more whole. We discover things about his law that are not obvious to others. Anyone who keeps the Sabbath. In fact, December 9th, a book is coming out. Stop in the Name of God, where a man who's never been a Seventh-day Adventist has written a book about why all Christians should keep the seventh-day Sabbath. Because he discovered that when he did so, He discovered a blessing of God that he did not experience just as a Sunday keeper. And isn't that what we discover when we obey God's law? That it may not make any sense. Why Saturday, not Sunday? But when we start to keep God's law, we discover blessings in them that are not obvious, that are not clear and undeniable, you can only
Tactile.
know the blessings. You can only feel the blessings after the obedience, because before the obedience, it makes no sense. And so, but God wants us to purify ourselves. He wants us to follow his commands because he has those for our own good and for goods we don't even know until we feel it. We might not even know completely what it does for us until we go to heaven and go, oh, I didn't realize it was doing that for me too. But God's laws are blessings to us. We were created for them, and in order to have the promised land, it must be fulfilled within our own lives. His law. All right, let's go ahead and pray and close. Dear Lord, thank you so much for this Sabbath. Thank you for the blessing of the Sabbath. I pray that more people will learn of this blessing. More people will learn of how you bless us through keeping your law, how it is not a burden, but that it is something that makes us better as people, better with each other, and that you want it only for our good, and that you want to give us the blessing of the land, but that with it comes claiming your power to be our Savior, and trusting that everything that you have told us to do, that it is good for us and protects us. In Jesus' name, amen.